strokes. Holding water, so much you will know about dolphin kicks, flip turns, dives, and how to find an awesome coach. Hosted by Bryan, Welter, and Kerns. Holding water is where competitive swimming is learned.
What's up out there, everybody? Hope you guys had a good week of practices and maybe some swim meets out there for some of you guys. Welcome back to another week of Holding Water. What we think is the only show out there dedicated strictly to age group swimming. And we're very fortunate enough to have two fantastic guests again today. Had a great show last week with a lot of information from Mariusz and John. And so the two guests that we have today are going to bring a bunch of knowledge and experience, and we know everybody out there is going to get a lot out of it. Coaches, if you guys are out there, we want you guys to be interactive on this. So if you want to click on our faces, put questions in the chat. We'll answer them. Try to answer them live on the show if we can. And we got some great stuff for you. Bryan, what's up, man?
Not too much. Just got done with practice, so we actually had to cut it off a little bit. I beat him up pretty good yesterday, so today we came in and tried to beat him up again, and I decided it was time to pull the ripcord with about 15 minutes left, and we went ahead and warmed down and called it a day. So, but it's that time of season. We're supposed to be getting a little tired. So, but on to the guests. We got a couple pretty good guests. I'm pretty excited. I know one of them pretty well. The other one I've been passing a handful of times. I'll start off with Alexis Keto. She's started out at Northwestern, and she was at NC State for a while, and then she went up to Colorado and coached a team and outside in Colorado, which is just pure insanity to me. And now she's at New Trier in Chicago. So welcome aboard, Alexis. It's good to have you.
Hi guys, how's good to see you both.
And our other guest has been around up in that area for a long time. She said she was at RMSC for 22 years, and now she's over in NCAP. Done a phenomenal job everywhere she's been. I grew up in the South, so I didn't run into her too much as an age group guy, but always heard about all the great things she was doing. And that's welcome aboard, Sue Chen.
Hello.
Hey, guys. Thank you guys for taking time out of your Sunday. We're happy that y'all could join us on the show today, and we just wanted to give us a little introduction, a little bit of history on yourself and your teams, what you guys have been going through. Alexis, what you got?
Do you want to start with history or with what we're doing right now?
Whatever you got.
Well, I started as a college coach, and then
we lost her. Coming back.
There we go. Anyway, so I started in college coaching and then moved to age group coaching when I moved back to Raleigh, North Carolina. I was in Colorado for a short time, and then moved back to Raleigh, started coaching at YMCA, the Triangle area for a little bit too. Coached for NC State, had a whole lot of time there, and then moved to Colorado. Where I did coach outside year round, which brings us to kind of where we're at in the pandemic. A lot of teams have been working on trying to find pools that are safe. And so outside training has been a big key of that. We just finished our last outdoor practice on Thursday, and we're moving back inside, we had a great practice today where we just kind of did a long aerobic stuff because the girls are coming back from high school at New Trier. We have been fortunate enough that our high school swimming has been going off. So the girls go and swim high school for a little bit, and the guys are going to go off in about a couple weeks. So it gives us a little bit of an interesting vibe on the top end of our program. But the younger end of our program, we've been rocking and rolling. We've been lucky. We've been in since June. So that's been pretty fun.
Alexis, are your high school kids, when they go train, are they strictly high school during that high school season?
Yep. So I don't coach them for that period of time, which is a tough one. I thought when I moved out, I would totally hate that, because anybody who knows me knows I'm a little bit of a control freak. But I definitely have embraced it, and it's been great because it gives me time to get to know the guys as a set of as an entity, and the girls as an entity, and they get 6 months where they're kind of they create their own gender identity as a program, and then flip flop, which is kind of cool. And then we come together for 6 months. So yeah, it's kind of a unique thing, and we've sort of worked through it. It's not ideal, but I have a really good working relationship with all the high school coaches in our area. So they're all really great coaches, and they do a really great job in getting the kids faster. So it's been working out so far.
That's awesome, Sue. This is the third time I've suckered you into a Zoom meeting or a swim coaching talk since the pandemic started. So, well, I know kind of what you guys have been going on. Tell everybody else that's out there what's going on at NCAP.
Let's see. It's NCAP is kind of spread around the DC, Virginia, Maryland area. So in Maryland, at least, we've been having some issues trying to get inside. So at this point, we don't have any indoor pools. We usually swim at American University. They're shut down. Me and Bruce Gemmel are over at Georgetown Prep, and they've shut down. So we have been forced to go to neighborhood pools and kind of knock on the door and say, hey, can we use your pool for the next 6 months? So the local neighborhoods have been really, really wonderful to us. We found, Tom has found us 5 different pools. We just kind of get a couple groups in each pool, and we have to do the cleaning ourselves, and we had to take a pull op course. So we had to take all the stuff that I had absolutely no desire to ever do. But you know what? It's been working out fairly well. Anytime my kids complain, I just told Alexis this. I just bring her up saying, hey, look, it's 40 degrees out, but like she coached when it was -5. So everybody has to deal with it. But I think in general, I talk to the kids. I think it's going to end up making us, kind of, get a little grit isn't a bad thing. But just going back to where I started back in, 1986, I actually started up in Pennsylvania where Kobe Bryant went to high school. So that was always super exciting. And then I came down here with RMSC, and I was blessed to work with the 8 and unders all the way up into the senior program. And I think that's really helped me out a lot as far as my coaching. And I also coached kids with disabilities, which also helped me learn how to communicate a little bit better with the younger ones. So I've been pretty lucky in that sense. And I'm glad I had the ability to work on with every kid from 6 years old to, 18, 20, 25 when they come back from college. And I think that's kind of given me a nice, well-rounded view on the process that it takes to move forward in the sport.
So in hindsight, would you recommend to younger coaches that they try to get on every level and work with every level of kid and understand how the process works at all those levels? I mean, do you think that's a valuable commodity to have?
I do. I mean, I even look at Bruce. I mean, Bruce, during the quarantine, we don't do it, but when we were all at prep, he went to all the 10 and under practices and got to know the kids' names and learn their different personalities. And I do think there's a lot of value to that. I remember Frank Bush telling me he would never recommend anybody for college coaching until they coached age group coaching. And I think there is a lot of value to seeing how kids progress just physically, emotionally, mentally. I think there is a lot of value to that.
That seems to be like the complete inversion of what's happening now. I feel like now all these college coaches are just former swimmers who have decided to keep coaching, and they have these really nice, good jobs at college programs, or seemingly nice, secure jobs at college programs up until recently. But Alexis, I know you and I have hit on this a bunch from last couple years ago at the Leadership Summit to now, about senior level coaches, about age group senior level coaches coaching with the young kids. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what your personal thoughts are on how impactful that or how important that is?
I think it's huge. I would agree with Sue, and I mean, I coached 10 and unders for a while, and I'm actually coaching a group of 10 and unders right now who are just great. And it definitely, I'll take some of what I'm doing with the older kids and bring it down to the younger kids and vice versa. And there's usually a theme. Whatever I've done with the older kids that week is going to be mirrored in what I'm doing with the 10 and unders. And I think it's really important. I think if you really want to understand how to coach a top level kid, even when they're 16, 17, 18 years old, working with 10 and unders is really helpful because they're really different and they have zero filter. Like, they're more than happy to just tell you what they're thinking at any given time. And they'll ask questions. They have no fear. And when you realize how many questions a 9 or 10-year-old is going to ask you, it's helpful when I go and I coach the senior kids, because I realize that they also are going to have those questions. They're just not going to ask them necessarily. And so I try to make sure that I'm as clear in my communication with my older kids as I am with my younger kids.
I always feel like I'm doing something wrong at the end of, like, I explain a set and I go, all right, does anybody have any questions? And with my 11 and 12-year-olds, it's like, all right, well, we're in it for 5 more minutes as soon as I ask that question. And then if I'm covering a senior group practice or coaching a group of high school kids, anybody have any questions? It's just like, nobody says a word whatsoever. So same thing. Bryan, what about you? What's your big thing with coaching at different levels?
I mean, right now I'm coaching basically the best 10 to 12-year-olds. And then I've got a group of 11 to 14-year-olds that are the top 11 to 14-year-olds at my site. I think the biggest thing for me is I've coached on every level, basically. I haven't coached college, and I don't ever want to. But I've coached, national level. I've coached all the way down to summer league and swim lessons. So, I mean, I agree with Sue and Alexis completely. I mean, I think that you have to do that in order to understand what it is you're trying to do and how that progression is going to go. So the biggest thing that I struggle with my 10 to 12-year-olds is I probably treat them a little bit too much like adults, and I probably expect them to understand more than they maybe than anybody else does or than most people do. And it gets pretty frustrating at times. I'm in one of those points right now where I'm a little frustrated because we're just struggling to do the practice the right way. And I don't do a lot of hand holding. I expect if I'm going to print the workout out and I'm going to explain it, I expect it to get done. And that's tough for some 10-year-olds. So that's kind of been where I'm at with what I'm trying to do. But I'm going to hold the course and we're going to figure it out. And when we do, we're going to be better. That's the plan. But that's kind of where I'm at with it.
So one of the things that I love about where I am, I've been at CMSA Mobile for 15 years now. And I love the fact that I got a chance to start with our intro group, our literally our group from Learn to Swim into what we call age group 1, just the intro group of our program. So it's, just teaching freestyle and backstroke and then introducing butterfly and breaststroke and, moving from that group to the next group up. And I literally have gone through and made my way all the way up to coaching our senior development, not our top level senior group, but I've coached that group before. And then kind of now I'm back with 11 and 12-year-olds, and Alexis and I were kind of talking about this pre-production with, just coaching 11 and 12-year-olds just re-energizes me to a level that I haven't had in a few years. The group I've got right now, I really love because it's been an opportunity to get to know an entirely new group of kids. And like Alexis said, no filter. They tell me exactly what they think, whether I asked for it or not. And it's been really great to get back to that foundational level where I don't necessarily worry about how much volume or how much threshold or how much of this is necessarily built into every practice. And like Bryan, like you said, sometimes you just have to pull the cord and say, all right, let's come back and let's restart this and let's get this right. So it's kind of given me some of those soft skills that I think age group coaches miss if you jump right into it and you don't have, or you have a lot of success and you get really, really predicated on results. So what are some of those skills you guys feel like are important for age group coaches across the country kind of develop themselves as coaches? Not everybody at once.
Well, I mean, I think realizing that every kid doesn't learn the same way is probably the most important thing to learn when you're coaching little kids. Because there's some kids that learn to read at different speeds. They learn to read at, like when they're in school, they have 4 different levels of reading or 4 different levels of math. And that same thing is going to apply when they come in. And if you write something on the board and, swimmer A is really good at reading it, but swimmer B is not, or they are used to wearing glasses or not wearing glasses or anything like that. Like those are all things that in the pool setting, it's important to understand is tricky, because we're starting to see a much more diverse population in swimming than maybe we were in terms of even just learning styles, you know, not in socioeconomics and all that kind of thing. And so that they're coming with so many different backgrounds. You're going to have different experiences coming to the pool than maybe we did 20 years ago. I definitely know that the kids that when I coached 10 and unders at Yoda, gosh, back in 2000, I don't know, 2000, or at NASA at Northwestern, I did a little kid coaching there too. And like realizing that the kids are completely like there's a whole different brand of kids. These kids are used to playing video games a lot more. They're used to being online a lot more. They're used to quick response, but at the same time, they're not always processing at the same levels across the board. And so understanding that every kid is coming to it from a different educational background, especially in that 10 and under frame, is really important. And it helps you be a lot more patient. At least for me, like it was a big exercise in patience when I had a girl that just goes, I can't see the board. I have no idea what we're doing. I can't see the board, and I was like, oh, okay, well, let's take the time. Let's hop out. Let's go take a look at the board so you can read it. And it's tough. I think for kids, I mean, and realizing that still continues as we go, as they get older too. I definitely have some kids in my practice that really benefit from having a workout up that they can have at the end of the lane, and that they can look at and read and understand what I'm talking about. And there's other kids that just benefit from me yelling out the set and off we go. And so understanding that is important.
Yeah. I think Alexis has brought up a really important word. I was just about to piggyback off what she said. And I think the word is patience. And one of the reasons we have to be patient is just like she said, kids don't learn at the same time. And you could have a kid who, you give them 30 seconds on butterfly drill and they get it right away. And then you have somebody else who doesn't understand it and doesn't have a very good awareness of their body yet at this point. And I think that goes into an important piece of information for age group coaches is let the kids progress the way they're going to progress. And they don't have to be this speed before they leave your group. It's not about having the speed when they leave your group. It's about having them progress into something much better years down the road. And I think, some of us, me, maybe when I was younger, that we get caught up in wanting that speed from our kids. And I think sometimes you need to take a step back and say, this is not the ultimate goal in their swimming career. That's going to happen 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the road. And I think there's a lot of value to remembering that. Be truthful with what you want to coach them, be all in and engaged in the process, and really believe in what you're coaching them. And it will might come in 6 months. It might come in 12 months, a year, 2 years. But if you're patient and you're consistent with the way you're coaching and what you believe in and your values in the process, then you're doing the right thing for the kids.
Good stuff. All right, so we're gonna mix it up a little bit for anybody who's out there normally that watches the show. We usually wait till the very end and throw out our workouts, but we got our fancy little main set graphic up there, and so we want to give Sue and Alexis an opportunity to kind of share a workout before we go back into the conversation. And it looks like, Sue, you got a workout up here that you guys sent in. If you would kind of take us through that.
Yeah. So I don't know why I picked this one, just because I love doing all 4 strokes, but I hate doing IM. So I can see Alexis in my corner agreeing with me. The thought of going 10, 200 IMs is like, my kids don't like it. They probably don't like it because I'm not a real big believer in it. I like mixing up strokes and doing a lot of that aerobically.
Yeah, I think that's.
I'm sorry. There was noise in the background.
You're good.
The beginning part of this is just, if I'm looking, you got to remember when I'm coaching outside right now, I have two kids on one side of the lane and two kids on the other side of the lane. So I give everybody the paper, which I can't stand putting it on paper because I call audibles half the time. So, but I'm trying to get used to having it on paper. So the beginning is just a general warm up, kind of mixing up the strokes a little bit. I have such diversity in my group. I have new 11-year-olds who are decent, but are very raw in their skills, up to kids that are a little faster than NCSA qualifiers. So I have like girls that are 108, 100 freestyle, that's short course yards, to, kids that are 51. So it's a different group for me this year because I aged out so many of the other ones. So the beginning is just a basic warm up. I like to kind of let them go on their own with the 300s that are up there. The first one free, then back IM. And then I think I had a fourth one at some point that was breast fly by 25s, but I cut it down to 3. So that's why it's kind of weird there. Then some 75s, just kind of getting a little kick and then starting to change speeds a little bit on the even ones. And all that is rest. And my normal warm up, I never do rest sets, but with the diversity of my group, it works out better for me and for the kids to do it that way. I try to do a little pull set every single day. Sometimes my pull sets are 3,000 yards or short course meters now that I'm outside. Some of them are short, like this one on the board here is relatively short. I just like doing pull. I let kids use, paddles and fins if they want to use paddles and fins, especially the ones that are a little bit on the younger side. Just a little descend and negative split, getting them to do some skills in there, I think is really valuable. I don't know if I'm sure coaches feel the same way I do about descend and negative split. It's a really difficult thing to teach them. But it's something that you just have to keep throwing at them. Number one, sometimes they're just not paying attention to the clock like they should. So they don't really even know if they're descending, but I do try to descend, negative split, build every day just so they can, kind of understand the value of those, because when they're racing, like I'm sure you've told your kids, some people are great negative splitters. Some people are even splitters and some people are not, negative splitters or positive splitters, which is totally fine. But I think it's important for them to kind of find their way into what feels good for them. So after that, I just had a long backstroke here. I love doing long backstroke. I do 10 400 meter backstrokes. I love long backstroke. Is a great way of doing just aerobic, and you don't really have to worry too much about them with bad technique, because most of at least the kids that I'm coaching right now have pretty good backstroke technique. And then a 400 breaststroke, just kind of cruising, 50 cruise, 50 drill, just focusing on body line, pullouts and chest press. And what normally happens in this part of the set is whatever technique I've worked on that week, I will kind of put it in here. So we did breaststroke the day before, and I just wanted to remind them about body line and good pullouts and just a nice good chest press in the breaststroke. So that's all kind of getting up and ready to go. And then here's my IM set, which I don't think I have a single IM in there. And it's just the ability to change strokes and get the top speed at the end of these descends. So it's 4 125s. I do 25 fly, 75 back, 25 fly, and I descended them. And then I just have a 200 here. Exclamation point for me is fast. So it's a 200 fast. And then I do 4 more 125s, 25 back, 75 breast, 25 back again. Descend 1 to 4 on that. And then 200 breaststrokes on 330. And then 4 more 125s, breast free breast. And then 3 200s back. I do a lot of backstroke. And we have a lot of good backstrokers come out of the group. So, I don't know, I don't know why. I haven't analyzed that yet. And then I did 350 IMs at the end, the way it's written, 75 fly, 100 back, 75 breast, 100 free. I like the way that is. I like to cut off a 25 on the short axis strokes. It's a little bit more comparable to a 400 IM in yards. And this is short course meters. Just gives them a kind of an understanding. We never swim short course meters, but we are now. And sometimes they just want to kind of see a time that they're used to in yards. So when I do 350 IMs like this, they're pretty close. to what they would be repeating at practice in a short course yard pool. And they seem to like just kind of having a familiar number to them when they're seeing that time on the board after that. But this is just a reel in general. I don't count yardage. I really don't know. I know Commit Swimming has my yardage on there somewhere. I write what I want to do, and then I look at the time and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's 2 hours and 30 minutes. I don't have, and then I start working my way back into the time. But the first thing I do when I write those things, this is what I want to get done. This is what I want to get done. And I think of certain kids in my head that I know it's really going to help them. And then I just put it all down, and then I try to work it together about, okay, how can I get the whole group? How can I get this to benefit the whole group? But usually when I write workouts, I am very, very specific, thinking about 4 or 5 kids. It's not always the same kids. Matter of fact, it's usually all different kids every day, but trying to get something for them in particular where they can leave that practice feeling good about themselves.
That's good stuff. All right. Thank you, Sue. That's really good stuff in the workouts there. Coaches, I think we should have both of these workouts in the comment section for you guys if you want to go look at them later and kind of go through them. Thank you for taking us through that one, Sue. And Alexis, we got one from you guys, and you guys have a little bit of a unique situation going on right now. I love that it's handwritten because I handwrite all of my workouts too. I'm going to get on Commit and start using Commit really soon. Bryan, I know you and Sue both use it, but I still I handwrite all my workouts. So.
I will tell you, and Bryan and I talked about this a little bit. I used Commit for 3 years. Like I love it. I would use it to check my work in terms of time. Like I used it the same way Sue did. I never look at yardage. It's not something I look at either. I think like you can get bogged down in that a little bit with kids. And especially because our training environment is so crazy for my program. Like it's can I get the work done? So I would actually handwrite it and then transpose it and then go back. And I'm the same way Sue is. I don't like giving my kids handwritten things or typed out the sheets because I always call audibles. That's like, you can see just on this sheet of paper how many audibles I've called. So this is a practice. Right now we have 12 kids in the water, 1 on each end in each lane. And we only get an hour of pool time right now. Today we were able to be at a different facility where I had 8 kids in a 20-yard pool and 16 kids that was what we did today. This is what we did last week. So we'll just talk about this. That's a whole other scenario of how I'm making that practice work. But so we do a very short warm up. We always have, because even in normal regular times, we only have between 75 minutes to 90 minutes for a workout. So the expectation is we get in, we get going, and that kick is actually a social kick because that's when the kids, especially right now, that's when they can talk with each other. And all my kids are online for school right now, or at least 50-50 online. So it's really important that they get that social interaction, even though it's like 1 per lane, they still like yell across the lanes about what they're doing in school and stuff. But it's been really good because without that, they would have an issue. And I put in there the kick set from Thursday because we didn't get to do it the day before because of a time crunch situation. But really any kick set goes in there. I like doing kick early in the workout to warm up the legs and get people going. And so this is how we work 12 different kids doing different things because we had the girls first and then the boys. And this was so we could do like their focused freestyle within that setting. So it's a very complex setting to get in 4 different things. And so we did effort work. So it's a 75 build freestyle on 110. Again, I was playing around with the intervals a little bit. And then 1 effort. And so the efforts were different based on what their focus was. Sprint, which is like, I have like 2 primary sprinters. I coach, this is a practice for my top senior group. So this is our top senior group practice. This isn't a 10-under practice. I probably should have sent one of those over too. But, and then mid sprint is like our 100 specialists. Long sprint is our 200 specialists. And then at 200 and like 500 specialists. And then distance is like our kids that swim the 1,000, the 500 is kind of a sprint for them. And so this is like, we only have an hour. So we're coming in and we're going full all out. Let's go. And making sure that they're getting that recovery time in that they needed. They got a little bit of easy in between it. The way we had set up the lanes was that the sprinters were next to each other, mid sprinters were kind of next to them. On the other side of the pool was the long sprinters and the distance kids. So, thinking about like how to construct the workout so that everybody can get done what they need to get done, race who they need to race, and do that while they're across the pool from each other. And then the next set is kind of building on that, but going a little bit shorter. Again, 75 build, one effort at 2 minutes real fast, and then working on that closing speed. We are not doing a whole lot of swim meets right now. As I told Bryan, right now, we just finished about a week ago, a 6-day inter squad meet with 12 people per session. So it was 4 sessions per day, 12 per session in a pool built in 1938. So yay. Our officials did a great job running it. My meet director was a rock star and did the whole thing. But
Wow.
So we're not really in like a real competition mode by any stretch of the imagination. We're still very much structured. So any racing we can do, this is kind of how we do it. So this is how we're creating that. And this got done in 58 minutes, I think, is what the whole workout from warm up to finish. So that's what we've got. That's what we have to work with.
Alexis, who's been a big influence on you with the way you write workouts? It looked like a little bit like almost like a Dave Salo kind of, where there's some variation in there. Like, I don't know if anybody else picked that up, but I looked at it and I did. I saw it and I said,
it's actually, so when I grew up, my coach growing up was Dave Bottom.
Okay.
And so he's the younger brother of Mike Bottom. And when they were coming out with this is like, I don't know, late 90s Auburn era kind of swimming, where there was a lot of this kind of get through, like, how do you make a short course pool work that for long course training, and can you think outside of the box? That's where a lot of it came from. That was kind of how we trained a little bit of Jimmy Tierney from Northwestern, now at McKendree. Jimmy would do a lot of that stuff, and Sonia Porter was our assistant coach there. And so it was like, how can you create a team environment without compromising what individuals need to do, which is kind of, Sue touched on that a little bit too, but
that's awesome. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
So I think Sue probably hit on this a little bit earlier. And Alexis, I know you and I have talked about this right now with the range of kids that we have in our age group programs. And for you guys, how do you coach an age group program where you've got a really, really elite level athlete at the same time as maybe some very developmental kids?
That's a challenge. I know that we might be talking about, do you coach from the upper level down and I believe in my heart that you coach from the upper level down. Not that you just let the little kids go and swim back and forth and not pay attention to them. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think you coach at the high level, or at least you write the workout for the group or the person, whatever it is, at the high level, and then you make modifications. And you know what? Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you're going to have 3 intervals or 4 intervals during each practice. So what? Like, you have to remember as coaches, sometimes you're going to have practices like that their kids are not going to be on autopilot. You're going to be running all over the place from lane 1 to lane 8, trying to organize it, having 2 watches in your hand and having a clock on the wall and trying to organize all the intervals for the kids. But, oh, well, some days are difficult like that, but I am a big believer that you coach from the top level, what they need, and then you modify that for the rest of the group.
Yeah, I would agree with Sue. Like, it's a lot of, you mentioned when you were talking about your workout, Sue, about how you kind of think when you write a workout, you think of a kid in your head or a couple of kids in your head and how that's going to affect them. And then you radiate that out to the rest of the group and how that can also help them. But maybe, like, if you're going to run an IM set, maybe it only has direct purpose to the kid that's an IMer, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have purpose or meaning, can have meaning to other people.
Right.
So, yeah, it's it's one of those things where I think you kind of got to like just space it out and kind of wait into it. And it's tough when you've got a kid that's like training for trying to get in the finals at nationals in the same group as a kid who's just trying to make NCSAs for the first time. Like that's a big stretch, I think, sometimes for them to feel like they matter.
Absolutely. Go on.
I think the interesting thing for me, I mean, having been 11 to 14 predominantly throughout my career, is when you get like this past, I had a boy, or this past two boys that are real good. I mean, top 3, top number 1 in the country, training beasts. I mean, just do whatever it is you throw at them. And I've got 25 kids in 5 lanes, and, I got a boy going 434 at 13 years old in the 500. And the next fastest kid in the group is going 455. And then I've got girls that are going 540. So I think that part of it has been a real challenge. And I think you're right. You do have to make sure you take care of those top tier kids, and then scale it back from there. And I joke around about how sometimes my threshold sets for my slower kids are really just aerobic sets, because they're not getting enough rest to be able to make it threshold. And until they get the aerobic capacity to get that kind of rest, they're just going to do a little more aerobic work than everybody else. So that's that's been the challenge that I faced, is because as an age group program, you don't get that space. If there's an extra lane or two, I don't know who you guys have worked with, but in my experience, that usually ends up in the national group lanes, those extra 2 lanes. So, I just feel like you got to make it work. But I agree. I'm a top down as well. We try to design things that way, and then just modify them to try to get them to work for everybody. So
I think you have to too, because to a certain degree, when you're limited by pool space and available lanes and time, there's a finite amount of work that you're going to be able to get in, a finite amount of teaching that you're going to be able to get in. And if it's, if you have that elite level kid, you don't want to lose them because they're not, ever getting a challenge. They're not getting stimulated and growing and getting better. So I think it's really important. I do agree with all 3 of you. I think I write everything top down, but I also have an understanding that I have to pay attention to, I've got to think of that 3rd or 4th interval and think of those kids in that 3rd and 4th interval group. And, instead of everybody else maybe doing 200s, but that last interval group, maybe it's not a different interval. Maybe it's a shorter distance. Maybe instead of 200s, they're doing 150s, or instead of 300s, they're doing 250s on the same interval that the A group may be. And there are days probably when I cut my group in half and I say, okay, this, I could make 3 intervals, but I'd rather this group that's going to be at the middle to be at the top of this second interval group and become leaders, because ultimately that's going to be the next wave of kids that you want to step up in that group and be the leadership of that group when you promote some kids out of your group in that top 8 interval group, and continue to drive those kids forward in the right direction and give them a sense of success. But we got a little bit of something different in here than we traditionally have on the show. And I have a feeling, Sue, you've probably had to think of this person a few times when you're writing workouts. Had a very successful young man who's made his way to an Olympic team. He's gone on to be a stud for the University of Texas. And he has been so kind enough to join us today. Yeah, he's sneaking in here and surprising you. I talked to him yesterday. Jack, what's up, man?
How you doing? Hi, Sue.
Oh, Jack, how are you? It's so funny. We just talked a couple days ago.
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Well, Sue, I called Jack yesterday. And I said, do you want to tell her? And he said, oh, no. I want to surprise her. I'm going to come on there and surprise her. So, Jack, tell us what you got going on, man.
Nothing much. Sundays are always super nice just because it's one of those things where I don't have to go jump in a cold pool, I can really focus on, getting the sleep in, focus on recovery, making sure that, I'm doing all my rehab for things that are sore, things that are not right, and I'm activating everything that can be done. But Sundays are always a blessing. But everything's going great here in Charlottesville. No complaints from me.
You need a haircut.
Oh,
I know my haircut, my hair, my beard have got to go.
Okay.
So he told me yesterday. He said that's perfect. He said she's like a second mom for me. So that's definitely a mom that you got him right there. Jack, tell us what it was like swimming in Sue's age group program.
Oh, I mean, I still consider Sue one of my very, very close coaches that, I've been working with her since I was 14. I'm 26 now. Ooh, makes me feel old.
You're not, I promise.
But I started with her right when I graduated from 8th grade, so I was 14. And it was a rocky start for the first couple of months. I would say for the first 6 months, because I, had all the success in middle school, and then suddenly, sets got a lot harder. I was being pushed a lot more, and for the first, I'd say 2 summers I was with Sue, I didn't necessarily have the success I wanted. My freshman year, I had really great success, short course, both at metros, which is, I guess, states for other schools. For our district, it was called metros, for the DMV. And I had a great NCSAs. I won the 2 back as a freshman. I think I went like a 144.0 or a 43 high something, which was great at the time for, a 15-year-old kid. And, I wanted to break 200 in the long course 200 back. And I wanted to have all this big success in the big pool, which is all that really matters, right? Especially for me, for my job right now. And it didn't happen. And I was super frustrated and confused. And, I learned at a very young age, when I was 15, what Sue and I both kind of just constantly preach and talk about a lot, is the process. And that's something that, I'm very blessed and thankful that I learned at such a young age. Just basically, you can put all of this hard work in, but the results may not necessarily show when you want them to. I can think of that summer, and I can think of having a horrible 200 back after my freshman year, which at the time was my favorite event. And of course, I was young and stubborn, and I still kind of am, outgrowing it. And ironically, it was 2010, I believe, and that was Pearsall's last year. And I remember after my 200 back, Sue kind of pulled me aside and said, I have someone I want to talk to you. And I have a very close relationship with Aaron to this day. And he kind of talked me off the ledge and basically told me, it really only takes 1 or 2 good swims to make or break your career. So, you can't get down on yourself too much for, 1 or 2 bad swims, or even 1 or 2 bad summers. And that really resonated with me. And so, when we got back home, my sophomore year, it was back to the drawing board. And she basically gave me a decision and said, you're one of the best swimmers in the country right now, and for your class. And, you can go to any school you want in the country, but you have to decide right now whether or not you want to be great and try and make an Olympic team and win an Olympic gold medal, or if you want to just be average and just kind of do the whole college swimming thing and call quits from there.
Yeah. Jack, the things that like stick out to me with coaching you was your ability to understand the importance of a single practice, if that makes sense. Like, you think that the practice in October 1st is just as important as the week up to nationals. And I think a lot of kids don't understand that, and when I say that to everybody, I'm talking like you would know every repeat that you held. We did 4100s freestyle. You would know every single one that you held. When we do 6 200s from a dive, which is a great story. Do you remember the 6 200s backstroke that you did? And you were so mad at, like, you went a one. I'm old. Okay. I can't remember the time. Maybe you went a 148 or something. And you were like,
We always decided to split them.
Curse word. And then he said,
Big time.
I'm not getting out of this pool until I go a 147 or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, we have like 10 and unders coming in the pool in like 20 minutes. But you got up and you tried it again, and you got up and you tried it again, and then you ended up finally getting it. But I don't think many people see the value of a single practice. And I think you really, really did see the value. And I think it's a great lesson to learn to be as engaged October 1st, when you don't have a swim meet for another 8 weeks, be that engaged just like you are the week before a swim meet. And I think that was something that you really, really nailed. And you really felt, okay, if I want to break, if I want to go to the 500, that was a big, big goal of ours at Metros, is for you to break the record in the 500. Phelps's record, right? Wasn't it Phelps's?
I think Michael held the that 17-18 NAG record, but we were really focused on the national high school record from Jeff Kosloff.
Yeah.
Is that when did you go 418?
No, I went a 17 when I was a junior and just missed it, and then I smashed it when I was a senior and went a 13, I think. But yeah,
I think he was the first one that went sub 415 and a sub 20 point in high school. Yeah. So, and we didn't really do any sprint practices. The only thing we did is we played water polo on Fridays because we didn't have a pool. So we used the diving well, the good old days. And these guys were so competitive in just this little 20-yard, 15-yard, 20 by 15 little area. And we would play water polo. And I'm convinced that's how we got so many sprinters, because our group, actually, we had the top 50 freestylers for like 10 years in a row or something crazy like that. But
yeah, you sat me out a couple times, getting a little too rowdy during those Friday afternoons. But, back to that 200 set, I think I would always split 3 backstroke and 3 freestyle. And I think that specific day, I really wanted to go, I think, like a 146 or a 47. And, my first 3, I didn't hit it. And I basically just said, I'm not leaving until I do it. And I'm just going to mash my head into a brick wall until I get this done. And I think finally on 5 or 6 or 7 or however many I did, I think I went a 145 mid and just knocked it out of the park. And excuse me, I remember warming down after that, and I can't remember who you were talking to. And someone was having a bad day, and you basically explained what you just said, which was, you see what he just did? He did what he was not supposed to do, and he made the adjustment in his head and mentally and decided, I'm not going to leave until I get what I need to be done. And essentially you were like, that's why he's going to be successful, is because he understands how everything works. He understands about every little detail. For better or for worse, I can remember most of those times that I held on those 41s, or the 21 200s we did, or the 21 stroke we did. I can remember the mind grinders that we've done. I can remember all the back half 50 paces that we've done. And it was something that I was really just kind of able to sort of narrow in and focus on every day, and really just figuring out what is so specific and what's the importance of that day. Mondays were always test set days, and then sometimes we moved it to Tuesdays, and then Tuesdays we kind of broke it down to sprint, and then Wednesdays were kind of a big stroke and IM day, and then Thursdays were a big kick day. Friday was a big kind of drills and starts and turns, and then a little bit of water polo, and then Saturday was, you get a 10K rock your world, and then you go run 3 miles. And then Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings would be, Monday morning would be a rude awakening, where it'd be a little bit more yardage and lots of 500 and 400 IM stuff. And then Wednesday mornings was a little nicer. It was a little bit more drill oriented, and we would always do a 75 from a dive and then a 25 underwater kick at the end of practice. And then Fridays were a little bit more sprint oriented. So, even looking back, 8 to 10 years ago, I can still remember the cycle that I was in, and I can still remember going into each practice of what I really needed to focus on, or why I needed to focus on doing it. And, for better or for worse, I would get super frustrated when I wouldn't hit my times, because ultimately I would know that I wanted to put myself in the best position that I could to, achieve those big goals that we set out each season. So, I think that's something that's super important is short-term goal setting. And, I think that's something that you and I did great when, in high school was, every day there was a short-term goal. I wanted to hit this pace. I wanted to hit that pace. I had to do this on these 41s in order to go that 413. And it was one of those things where, I had one or two bad ones and I would have to, constantly, we would both remind each other, I had to shake it off, and I had to, just get my head back in the game and just really understand that, it's okay to not necessarily hit that time, but it's really about making sure that you're putting in all the effort. And I'm not just talking about a little bit of effort. I mean, there were practices where I was throwing up left and right from, and I would hop back in the water, I would warm up, I would warm down, and I would do it all over again.
Yeah.
Hey, Alexis, we talked about this earlier today, and Jack kind of hit on this too about, just the importance of the process and coaching and teaching. And, a lot of young age group coaches, I think, get really caught up. Sue, you mentioned it earlier, in the times and the results really early on. So, talk a little bit, if you don't mind, Alexis, about what you were saying earlier with regards to the importance of that.
Well, I would actually turn this into a question for Jack since he's here. Sorry. I think we've met like once, but that's about it. But like 2 or 3, and you've already kind of touched on the importance of like the singular practice. So what would be 2 or 3 like life lessons that you feel like you've gotten out of swimming, maybe from Sue, maybe from another coach? I know you're are you training at UVA right now?
Yeah, I'm training with Todd DeSorbo.
Excellent. I coached Todd in masters swimming like years ago, so totally give him some crap, because he was like the only master swimmer who would swim the 400 IM regularly, and he's like a year older. I've known him since we were like 13 years old. We grew up swimming together. I love him. You're in such a great place. That's so exciting.
That's a small world. Wow, that's amazing.
But neither here nor there. What would be like 3 things that you carry on that you're going to want to carry forward?
The first thing that comes to my mind is the process, right? So basically life's not fair. And, you have to realize that, sometimes you're going to get the short end of the stick. Just a little bit like, when you're shaved and tapered and you don't go best time, you don't shiver down and cry and go to your knees. You get back up and you get back up to the plate and you try to hit a home run. So the biggest thing is from swimming that I think Sue has taught me, and swimming has taught me obviously as well, is the process, and just understanding that all of that hard work that you put in might not necessarily come out when you want it to, but it will eventually. So the number one thing I would say is the principle of a work ethic, and just really understanding that there's working hard, and then there's really just mashing your head into the wall every day and just really trying to get something done. And I think that's important. And I also think another important thing is to understand have fun with it. As serious as I am about talking about these principles and the things that I've learned is swimming's supposed to be fun. People get super scientific with it, and ultimately, there is a lot of science behind it, but you're swimming up and down a black line as fast as you can. I tried doing the 500 at my freshman year at Texas, and then I also tried, being our sprint flyer. It's, Eddie will take the blame my freshman year for my lack of success, even though I'll take all the blame. But it's impossible to taper you for both those events. So it's kind of about learning and just, I put my freshman year, going back to the fun part, the weight of the world that I wanted to carry the team as a freshman. I was the number 1 recruit. I wanted to make sure that I was scoring all the points, and I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I think that it's really important to have fun, number one, because like I said, we're swimming up and down a black line. It's not rocket science. And then the last thing I would say is being in these big time moments, like being at trials, trying to qualify for my first team, doing it in 2012, not doing it, doing it in 2016. I got 3rd in the 200 free. I got 3rd in the 200 fly. I got 4th in the 100 fly. But the big kind of impact that, I've learned, one of the bigger impacts that I've learned from swimming is, is pressure, and really understanding how to deal with that, and understanding that the only pressure that can really affect you is what you put on yourself. So, you really have to block all that external noise out of your head and just control what you can control. Swimming is, it is an individual and a team sport at the same time, but, when I'm at trials, I can't control what Caleb Dressel's doing. I can only control what Jack Conger's doing. So for me, it's focusing on every little certain aspect and detail of what I need to do to be putting myself in the best position possible for, achieving my goals.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jack,
Pretty 26-year-old. Just saying. That's I don't think I had that sense of awareness when I was 26 years old.
It's a gift and a curse.
You talked about continuing to enjoy swimming and things like that, and and I know at Texas it had to be amazing having those guys around you, having just that environment with Grandpa Eddie leading you guys down this path and making you guys just race each other every day on 175s and 325s and all the weird stuff that he does. But you did the ISL, right? Are you doing the ISL again now, or?
I did it last year. I did the first season. I opted out not to do it this year. For a number of reasons that Todd and I discussed, but I did do it the first year, and I opted out not to do it this year.
And so, I mean, how did that experience compare to the college experience? I mean, and I guess, I obviously with it being an Olympic year, sort of, you know what I mean? The Olympic year, I get the decision to opt out, but how did that experience compare coming out of college and then being able to transition into the ISL? I mean, did that keep the fire going? Was that a team type of?
So it's super interesting because being at Texas, it's a brotherhood. I made some of my best friends in my entire life. Those are the guys that are going to be in my wedding one day. And then to go from that to the ISL was both similar and different on a number of different levels. Because it was for the ISL, you're competing with girls and guys, and at Texas, obviously, it was just the men. So that was a huge change and a huge difference. Was where we at Texas, we didn't necessarily always pay super close attention, during a dual meet for the women's team, because we were so focused individually on us winning. So, for being in the ISL, you have to pay attention to both sides of the game. And it was also unique and super kind of inspiring because, I was on the LA Current last year, and there were a ton of Cal and Texas guys on the same team. And, that's, I would say right now, that's the biggest rivalry in college swimming is, Cal versus Texas for men's swimming. And it was super cool to kind of bond and find, someone that I look up to growing up swimming, like someone like Nathan and someone like Mac Reavers. And, now I'm on the same team with them, in a college like dual meet setting. So I think that's super special and super unique. But, being the Olympic year, I just have to make sure I'm doing everything I can and make sure that I'm staying ready so I don't have to get ready.
Nice.
That's kind of what I was getting at. I mean, I totally get the decision, but I feel like the ISL thing is pretty entertaining from that standpoint.
Yeah, it's super unique, and I definitely think it's super entertaining. But yeah, it was a great experience, and I loved every second of it last year. And I think it's a great way to kind of grow the sport of swimming. And I think Michael knocked it out of the park, growing the sport of swimming. It's the premier event of the Olympics now, and I think this is another unique way to kind of show that people only really care about swimming once every 4 years, and now this is bringing awareness to the sport. So now maybe they'll care about it 2 to 3 years out of the cycle. But it's just
5 weeks every 4 years instead of just 1 week every 4 years.
Yeah, you got to slow cook this thing. You got to slow cook this process. it's a little bit like when you first start to lift. You're not going to put 300 pounds on the bench and try and do that your first time. No, you take baby steps, you work your way up, and that's just kind of how life goes. You got to walk before you run.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. So a question for everybody here, and Sue and Jack, start with you guys, but like, how did you guys judge success at an age group level for Jack or for any athlete in your group? Sue, I mean, was it typically predicated on the result at the end of the year, or do you use, what other measurables did you guys use?
Well, I think any coach would be lying if they said, oh, it's not about times, because the fact of the matter is that is a big piece of it. Swimmers are not going to stay in the sport if they're not getting best times, maybe not season to season, but getting best times is important. And we want the kids to see their progress. Is it the only measure? No. I mean, a good measure is whether or not they come back to your program. That's a big deal to us, making sure that we get the kids year to year to come back to our program and swim with us. What I always say is, you want the 12 and unders to have fun, and you want 13 and overs to enjoy it. And I think that there's a difference in there, but I do think that is part of the success, is having the 12-year-olds have a little fun, playing some games. I think there's a lot of value to that. And I think if we can get them to really have fun at practices, not every day, but if we can get them to have fun, that is very successful. And if you can make that transition from the 12 and under fun to really start enjoying the process a little bit more at 13 and overs, I think that is a key to the success. And also, I hate using the process word all the time. I mean, I did this hour talk on it years and years ago about the process, but it is really, really valuable to understand the process of swimming. And the problem with our sport, if I can just rant for like 30 seconds on this, is we have no consequences. In September, if you have a bad practice, there's no consequences. If you come in and you don't really want to do anything and you go in the back of the lane and you don't make the intervals, there's no consequences. There's consequences maybe in December when you get to the big meet and you're not getting best times. But I always tell my swimmers, what happens if you're a downhill ski racer and you just don't really feel like doing that turn that well? You could hurt yourself. You could die. They have consequences. If you're on a basketball team and you're not playing well at practice, there's consequences. You don't play Saturday. You don't play in the game. So it's something if you can teach these kids that what you're doing on a daily basis and the process is important, then I think that is a very successful tool, not just in the water. We say it all the time, but in life, but I think it's a combination of everything. It's a combination of times, of course. It's a combination of making sure they're having fun and enjoying it. It's a combination of them learning the process and accepting it and realizing that what they do in September matters in September, and it also matters in December. And just, it's like a kind of everything together, like a pile of everything, I would say.
Alexis, jump in here.
Well, I would agree with that. I think one of the things that this process has taught us is that, like, having to go through this pandemic, because my team was getting ready to go age group state. Like, literally, we were going to age group state. We were in the hotel checking in for sectionals. We were getting ready to travel to NCSAs, and everything shut down for us. And I think what it taught my athletes, because we had senior state like a couple weeks before, and they maybe didn't take it as seriously as they normally do because, oh, I've got one more meet. So one of the things that we've seen for us and for our team is that every practice does have meaning, because you don't know if it's going to be your last one. Like, one of the things the kids said we had like a meeting right after everything shut down and we weren't able to swim. We had a little meeting, and one of the things they said, if I had known that was going to be my last practice, I would have worked a lot harder. And that was almost a uniform thought process. And so we've kind of made that a little bit of our mantra. And you talk about what it takes to define success is that's got to change. I agree that we have to focus on times, but we have to learn more about this sport and what it brings to us. One of my master swimmers, I also coach masters in the morning, and it's really great. And they actually kind of turned and looked at me one day and said, we have to approach it with more of a master's perspective a little bit, that we might not swim, we might not race, we might not have that. We've got to learn to just enjoy this process. I think Sue's right with the choice of that word, and the difference between fun and enjoy is distinctive. And so we set 3 goals with with my top group. We've been working on 3 goals. The first is like a process goal. Like, what do you want to master? Do you want to be able to go on faster intervals? Do you want to be able to master a stroke you've not been good at? Something like that. The second one has been, what if we do get to race? What do you want to accomplish? What's that time going to look like? And then long term, what do you want to be? Where do you want to be down the road? And so we've been talking about a 2-year goal plan. Like, we might not have races in Chicago for until maybe August. And so we have to really think about and take this chance to say, okay, where do we want to be when that rolls back around for us to really have a race where we race somebody else? And that's a very real thing. And that's been hard for them to get a hold of, but they've actually been doing a really good job of it so far. And defining that success within those boundaries is going to be really important as we move forward. And it might or might not work. I mean, like, I can't speak to that, but I mean, we might not. I mean, like, it's a very real possibility that we're going to be in the 12-person inter squad hellhole that we are in right now. No, I mean, it still was really fun. Don't get me wrong. We actually had a lot of kids go best times, and it was super awesome. And I'm really glad they raced. But it really was like, it's a very different setting than being able to race with other teams even, and we can't even do that here. And that's tough. Like, one of the hardest part was even just getting a facility to let us run something that looked like a meet. It was amazing. And so trying to expand that is a big piece. Success for us, a lot of it. I think I saw a question earlier about whether or not you have kids come back. And I think that's like, when they graduate, do they come back? And we have kids that come back all the time. And I think that is a big moniker of success in a program is, do kids feel a connection with your program, that it's like family? Because many of our athletes are not going to be as talented as Jack and be able to go and do all these amazing things. So where can they find that same success and that same gratification that he's found in their swimming at a different level?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good stuff, guys. I mean, this has been a great show. We're running a little over here. We're at 110 here. We gotta go here, don't we, Dollar?
I mean, I could probably stay and listen to these 3 chat for another 2 hours. But I just wanted to Jack, thanks, man, for taking the time out of your day, and Sue and Alexis the same. You guys have provided a ton of it. I feel like this episode, as much as anyone that we've had, is going to get chopped up into a million different little clips of like great information for people. So to our producers and intern that are going to do that, thank you, because there's so much out there that's just a ton of stuff that's packed in, and we've been really excited to continue to bring this to you guys out.
Yeah, thank you for having me guest speak. If there's one thing that I'd like to kind of end on, and something that I just kind of had the epiphany, that light bulb moment when Sue is kind of talking about, black and white and successive times or not, of hitting times or not hitting times. I think it was my junior year, and it was in the spring. We were, talking about trials and talking about, I have to, stay ready in case someone slips up, it very well, someone can get DQ'd or this or that, to, really nailing and working on my finishes and my starts and my turns. And this was at a point in my career where Sue kind of looked at me and said, Jack, you have the talent. Your work ethic is perfect right now. And it has been, but you have to have a little bit of luck.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know if you have that yet. And that's something that you're only going to find out at the big dance. And that's something that's always kind of resonated with me, was, having that third key piece was a little bit of luck, and a little bit of something that not necessarily you can't control, but making sure that you take advantage of all the variables that you can.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. That's a great ender for another segment that can get chopped up in there. So Sue, Alexis, Jack, thank you guys. We appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much, guys.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
No problem.
No problem. Anytime.
All right, everybody out there, y'all have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you guys next week.
Go Chiefs.
Join us on the Swim Monkey.
Swim
Swim Monkey.
Monkey TV. On the Monkey.